Bringing you the phenomenal story of a woman in business is what we do every Monday. Just put the spotlight on these women so you're encouraged, whether you're a man or a woman, right? We're not biased. And we have joining us on the show this morning Dr. Jane Kimemia, who's a CEO, Optiva Capital Partners. She's right here with us in our Lagos studio. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
I don't know if you listened to the conversation around taxation. You're a wealth retention, wealth creation person, and taxation, I don't know if it supports wealth creation and wealth retention or otherwise. Perhaps you might want to speak to that, how that maybe improves the landscape of wealth creation, all through the value chain. But I'm particularly interested in your journey as a woman in business, is what we do. First, on a scale of 1 to 10, how challenging is it being in business?
How challenging has it been? It's interesting. Today, the 20th of January, today marks 28 years since I started working in corporate. I joined Barclays Bank on the 20th of January, 1997.
So today is a remarkable day.
Absolutely. It's a remarkable day to be having this conversation.
Wow. So
yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how easy, or I don't know if it's difficult, has it been?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I've had an amazing career. Prior, I've been at Optiva Capital Partners now. This is my 8th year. Prior to that, for 20 years, I worked for 2 international banks and rose through the ranks from, temporary person, teller at the beginning of my career, to an executive director in a multinational bank, and to a managing director for 2 of the subsidiaries. On a scale of 1 to 10, that's an interesting question. How hard has it been? I would say 7.
7?
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's tough.
But it's quite interesting.
Yes.
From a teller, a temporary teller, you said. That's where you started from.
Yes, they called us temps.
And you rose up.
Yes.
How does that work? How did that work? How does that happen?
Okay, so I started off as we were temporary. You'd work for 3 months, and then you'd actually take off because of the labor laws. My first job that I got as a permanent job at Barclays Bank was actually a teller, a cashier, and that time we didn't have note counters. But I absolutely loved it.
You did?
Yes. So I was a teller for a number of years, and I went into sales. And that was specifically for Barclays Bank. They call that segment prestige banking. And when I was a salesperson, I sold, and I absolutely loved it. And I remember my branch was near the United Nations headquarters in Nairobi, and every single day I went into the complex, and I had amazing success. And I grew after that into project management. I was a project manager at Barclays Bank, looking after. Now I started doing regional jobs: Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Mauritius, Seychelles. So writing business cases, execution, deployment of basically implementing projects and bringing change. It's transformation. That is what project management is about. And I became a project management practitioner, project in controlled environment. And then I went back into business as head of scheme lending, and I was in charge of lending for the bank, looking at specific companies, governments, institutions, and packaging lending institutions for their employees. And that was absolutely fantastic. I had everybody from the Service Commission for Teachers to the Department of Defense to the entire government ministries to all blue chip companies. And then I went into Premier Banking as head of Premier Banking, charged with the responsibility of turning around a business that wasn't doing very well. And in a nutshell, moving over to Standard Chartered Bank as General Manager, Priority and International Bank, and later on as Executive Director and Head of Wealth Management, in charge of investment banking, bank assurance, and FX for the East African region. And then on to Optiva Capital Partners, where we started as who we had been as an insurance brokerage firm, to whom we have grown into a fully fledged wealth management business and wealth retention business, serving the needs of our clients across wealth retention and global citizenship.
Okay, so before we get to a great career you've had, I must say.
Yes.
But you failed to tell us what the challenges were. So you're going to touch on the challenges and some of the things that you see in the community that you're trying to address. When I mean community, I'm talking national communities. Now, I'm talking about regional community, but this time we're going to zoom down to some of the specifics. But walk us, because somebody hear your stories, oh, it's all beautiful, I need to go to school, I can start from somewhere, it's going to be all of this beautiful, but the challenges is part of what we do on the program. What were the challenges, and how did you walk around it?
You see, there are a number of challenges. I think the first one is as a woman at the workplace. I remember the first time I went to work in Mauritius, and there's real stereotype, and I just felt I'm a woman, I'm a black woman in the boardroom. And even before that, the challenge of expectations, the challenge of that you're a woman, but I also think that a lot of it is in our minds. And being able to break that barrier and proving yourself consistently. The challenge of staying the course, because I think that's what a lot of people forget. By the time you're talking about 28 years, it's time. There's been many lows. It's not always been a success story. The challenge of people judging you just because you're a woman, but rising above it anyway and making it. And in time, you start to build a track record for yourself. So the foundational years were very, very important. And I tell that to a lot of young people. Your 20s into your 30s are going to determine the trajectory of the rest of your career. And as you continue getting success and proving yourself, I won't say the journey becomes easier because you're rising to higher levels. Now you're at the boardrooms of the world. Now you're dealing with international, maybe stereotypes at times. But at the same time, it's your mindset, it's the resilience, it's your ability to get collaboration and cooperation, to get mentors, and very importantly, to do your job.
Okay.
Yes.
So the reason I asked that question,
Yes.
because the way the world, they say, is a man's world.
Yes.
So that appears to make women to be in, quote unquote, a combative situation, posture. The reason is because they literally have to fight for almost everything and anything. And you're talking about wealth retention, maybe scaling wealth and all of that.
Yes.
When you work with women, what do you see? What have you observed as far as the structure of what you do is concerned? And what advice do you have for them?
You see, when I look at the challenges, and that was your earlier question, when you work with women. So first of all, women businesses are actually it's interesting, 42% of businesses across Africa and even in Nigeria is women, and that is huge. But the same challenges of, first of all, financial literacy, access to finance, operational challenges of people being able to make their businesses official, the business etiquette, the business knowledge, the training gaps, and you realize a lot of businesses remain at the macro, basically at the nano stage. Challenges of access to finance just because they're women and probably they've not been able to have had training to formalize their businesses. But at the same time, there's a lot of societal and mindset challenges that women have to overcome. And that's why the role of empowerment and support for other women, because there are women businesses that have done very well. And women need to see that so that there's a shift. It doesn't matter what the challenges are, that women, that power of a mindset that is going to be unrelenting, that's going to go for the goal. Those are the challenges I see. But you also asked, across Africa when it comes to wealth retention, real challenge as well. When you ask yourself, apart from the women businesses, how are we building wealth retention? What are the businesses that you can say have been around for 50 years? What businesses can you say have been around for 100 years? What wealth, they actually say only 1%, statistics show, only 1% of wealth in Africa is professionally managed. And that is a challenge. So that means that we are always starting over. 70% of wealth gets lost from first generation to the second generation. And this is the African case. And 90% of wealth get lost from first generation to the third generation. So what that means is that we are always starting over again. And that's why at Optiva Capital Partners, this has been a challenge we've taken very seriously. How do we work with women? Yes.
So just John, you've mentioned something quite critical, and
Yes.
before my colleague Kyrie comes
Yes.
in, which is very important. I know I was watching one on the international station. They had a program called the 100 Club. The one, I hope that's the name I can remember. The 100 Club is basically celebrating businesses that have been there for at least 100 years. I do not know how many businesses in Nigeria. This is where I come from, so let me stay here.
Yes.
I don't know how many businesses have survived for 100 years plus. Owned by Nigerians, built by Nigerians from grass and all of that. So my question is, what is it that we're not doing right, that this thing gets lost either in the second at 70 or the third generation for 90%? That is unacceptable.
It is, because how do we build prosperity? How do we build economies? There's got to be a structure of building enduring wealth. We've got to be able to thrive across seasons. And that's why the challenge, because we've thought about it, it's really, what is the framework? Very intentional about managing wealth. That comes back to the question of that only 1% of wealth in Africa is professionally managed. You could be a banker, you could be a trader, you could be a doctor. But when it comes to wealth management, what are the structures? And this is proven over time. So at Optiva Capital Partners, this is part of what we've come up with our strategy. Being very intentional about, we go to work every single day. How do we build enduring wealth? How do we help families thrive from their cycles of life? They're going to be 7 years of plenty. And how do you prepare for the 7 years and these cycles? And that's a challenge you put, because a lot of it is, you see, where are the billionaires of yesterday? Where are the businesses of yesterday? But across Africa, we are only going to be successful if you're able to address that at the family level of building enduring wealth from one generation to another. We're going to be only successful if you're able to address this at a company level, at a business level, to say my business is 20 years, it is 30 years, it is 50 years, and actually it leads me from one generation to another.
I mean, you're spitting fire, as they say, and I want us to empower people, because this is about women in business, but it's interesting that we're now talking about business and wealth in general. So I am, maybe not, someone watching you right now has considerable wealth. And I know wealth is subjective, but considerable wealth. And, in this climb, we don't want you to look into my wealth in that sense. Don't bring your eyes, they say, don't chook your eye into my matter. Mind your business, right? So we protect our information. You don't, talk too much about your wealth. So what should that person do differently such that that wealth is transferred to the second, third, and fourth? And I'm talking practically. You talked about structure, and I want you to break it down, because structure can mean a lot of things to different people. But what does this structure mean? Some don't believe in wealth management because they think these people want to collect part of the money I spent my sweat to make. So what are the structures you would advise that person so that you're able to leave something for your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren?
Thank you very much for that question. It's actually commanded of us, and I think across whatever faith. You see, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So when it comes to the structure, why do we come to work every day? Why are people crossing the bridge? Some going to construction sites, going to the market. The structure of wealth, we've actually come up, the Optiva Capital Partners family financial tree or a structure has 4 pillars. Number 1 is financial security. And being very intentional about financial security. Financial security is your ability to meet your needs, your basic needs now and into the future. And very importantly, to start to get onto the discipline of savings. A lot of people are already into this. So savings, setting aside money, you're talking about disposable income, being able to save. And whether you're 27, you're 37, you're 47, you're 57, a lot of these conversations are relevant to all of us. And that is a discipline. Once you get onto that discipline, this is what I do with my money. I set aside consistently. So that is a financial security. Number 2, so ability to meet your needs now and into the future, whether you're employed or you're in business, to create that level of base and to be able to save, to start setting aside money consistently. Number 2, you're looking at financial stability. I have saved, like you're rightly saying, whom do I speak to? What do I do with the money that I have saved over time? There's a role of professionals, absolutely. I could be a trader, but I'm not a professional wealth manager, and that's where we come in. And it's very simple. And sometimes it sounds like wealth retention, wealth management is a preserve of a few people, but it is not. It's a conversation that is relevant for everybody. So when you're talking about the stability of the base you've built, 10 million naira in terms of saving 100 million naira, whatever it could be. First of all, how do you safeguard the value of your savings over time?
Against inflation, against
devaluation of currency, against all the macroeconomic situations that we deal with. So the main word is safeguard. Very importantly, how do you diversify? How do you allocate we handle a lot of investments coming back into Nigeria. So it's really looking at the world with a global lens.
Right.
Don't limit yourself, yeah? Diversify, prepare for the rainy day. Make sure, right now a lot of them, you can get all the visas you want. For example, you can travel anywhere. But how do you make that permanent while you're thriving?
Right.
Because time will come when you go to embassies and they won't listen to you because your circumstances have changed. So that's what my advice to them. So it's diversification.
There you go.
Yes.
It's almost what we've talked about with
Yes.
our economy as well. Diversify the economy. So it's for individuals.
Yes.
On a final note, we have just about a minute to close.
Yes.
I mean, you oversee about 1,000. Your workforce is about 1,000. Am I correct?
Yes.
You said majority of them women.
Yes.
Very interesting. I'm very curious. What kind of CEO are you in the boardroom? Some people, when they hear woman CEO, they're like, no, I can't survive it. But how do you handle the boardroom? What kind of person are you in the boardroom?
I would say I'm a situational leader.
What does that mean?
Situational leader is different. You assess the situation. There are times it depends. It's so varied at the workplace.
So when you need to be a lion, you're a lion. When you need to be a dove, you're a dove, or a lamb. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. So different people, but first of all, in terms of being an inspiration and providing direction. I've been a different leader in different seasons across my career. But what I say is, when you talk about inspiring people, it's really appealing to them individually to see their journey and what is possible for them. I think for me, whether as a leader at the boardroom or as a leader in the marketplace, that's one of the things that's very, very important to me. And especially looking at the bulk of our citizens and the workforce, it's inspiring people to see what is possible for them. Like what has been possible for me is possible for them. And after that, being able then to provide the right environment, the leadership, the direction, the management on a daily basis to be able to help them succeed. It doesn't always sound like it's going to be rosy,
right?
Yeah, but that's what I believe in that leadership is.
It's been an interesting conversation, and I really hope that a lot of people have taken a cue from this, because it's something we need to really talk about in this part of the world and let it sink in. So you can watch this conversation again on YouTube, ensure that this really sinks in for you. We've been speaking with Dr. Jane Kimemia, CEO Optiva Capital Partners. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for having me and for an absolutely engaging conversation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Keep up the good work.
All right.
We'll take a moment now. While you allow that sink in, there's a lot going on the trends. The TikTok ban and return, going off and coming back on in the US. What's playing out with the EFCC? It's a lot to chew on. So stay with us right here. It's the Morning Brief.